MLS as a co-broke deal because there's no two sides. There's only one side.
But we've done that.
I think we have.
I mean, I know we have.
It's okay inside the brokerage. It's when you use another brokerage that it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying we haven't. I'm sure a lot of people have. I think that's why it was kind of a blanket email.
Which is why I'm here today. I'm like, you know what, we need a refresher course because, I know we've done it.
So when you
The
say,
new guy is limited to 3 questions.
oh,
So just before you ask questions, I got you on a clicker. I'm just kidding. He's my brother. I can do
That's how
that.
this is.
I won't pick on him.
That's
but-
how this is gonna
That's
go.
how so what was my question? So are you saying then that you said I have to have a buyer that I'm representing? Are you saying I have to have an exclusive buyer's agreement signed with that buyer? Or are you just saying I have to be representing a buyer? I mean, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we can go way into the weeds on that. But you aren't signing an agency relationship with the seller. So you could be a transaction broker for a buyer, you can be a buyer's agent for a buyer. I mean, there's different ways you could do that. But you don't have a listing with the seller, is what I'm saying. You use an authorization to show. What's that?
So then,
Somebody's ringing.
Bruce.
Oh, okay.
so then wouldn't you want to, if your buyer ended up being interesting, wouldn't you want to ultimately sign a listing with that seller? Otherwise, how are you going to be protected?
Well, you're getting paid from the buyer. But people are using an authorization to show as a listing is what they're doing. They're putting a full commission in there and then splitting it with some other agent, some other company, and technically do that because we don't really have an agreement with the seller. But that's what they've done. So, and that's what we've done. I'm not throwing any stones. I know, like Lori said, I know for a fact we've done it. And it happens. It's confusing. It's really confusing to me. I seriously didn't understand that for years. I thought you were getting like a one-time listing.
Me too.
So, okay, so I think we're ready to roll.
Yeah.
So here's how we want to, the reason that we want to do these classes is because MAR decides to, they continually update their forms and they add things without, sometimes, they just send out an email on it, or sometimes I learn from Ron or some other agent that something's been added to the listing contract and I've never seen it. So we want to always continue to do these things. Most of this is going to be stuff that you guys already know, but I want you to bring up anything that you don't know or you're confused about, and we can just brainstorm and talk it over. Not only do the forms change, but the way in which we present things change. And I'm not certain that that's not more important conversation or more current, up to the minute today's market conversation than the technical changes on a listing contract. So on the first slide, my computer went dead, but on the first slide, I had a couple things on there, and they were really just reminders of me. For me, that thing's going to turn on in any minute. Okay. Just reminders of me, for me to talk about. And a lot of this will come from our audit days, which weren't long ago. We're not attorneys. Can somebody expand on that for me for a minute? What does that mean to us as agents?
We only have opinions, not legal advice.
Absolutely. The other thing it means is if a form has their pre-made forms for us by attorneys, if they have a box on it, so if they have like for instance, a does or does not, that means you're supposed to check a box, not leave it empty. We got in trouble for that in an audit. So they're trying to keep us out of trouble. We want to limit what we write in. Obviously, we need to write things in. That's why we have special agreements, but we want to limit that. We want to try to stay with our forms as much as we can. I have no idea why that's timing out.
Those are fine.
Those are good. So that was the first thing is just we're not attorney. There are lots of forms and choices. I was just talking with somebody today. They not only change the forms we have, but they update the content of the forms. Right now, there is there's if you can imagine it, there is usually a form for it. If there's not a form for it, like for instance, for a long period of time, there was no escalation clause for a contract. I think there is now. Can somebody verify that? I've never used it, but I think there's an escalation in forms. We had our own. But before you try to do something yourself, look and see if there's a form on there, because they're always changing that. And of course, they change them often. Don't be surprised by that. I wanted to discuss strategy and communication. You're taking a listing. There's a couple things with listings today that I know that we've talked about before, but agents are losing listings because of the urgency in the market. Don't be afraid to get a listing signed without a price, without all the conversation taken care of, and coach your agents to do that. Take this back to the team and tell them this. The old theory of a two-step listing process, what I practiced for years and years, is a dangerous thing, because they see your car drive in and they watch what unit you go to. And when you leave and drive away, the neighbor runs over and knocks on the door. So you should be talking, have that in your mind when you go, to be as prepared as possible to get that thing signed, because you may not get another chance. And they think they've saved money, but they haven't saved money. It's cost them money. I learned this story from Jason the other day. There are investors out there knocking on doors, knocking on for sale by owners, buying those for sale by owners, because the seller's they're gonna save money. They don't have a realtor involved. They don't pay a commission. The investor then sells it for a lot more, goes and lists it, because there's no urgency, there's no competition. So when we go into a potential seller, we have to talk about the way a realtor represents their value today is through two things: strategy and communication. And then let that seller go, what do you mean, strategy and communication? Well, let me expand on that a little bit. Strategy is the process in which I create the most excitement. I package it correctly, I expose it correctly, and I generate the most excitement right out of the gate for you. And there's several different strategies that I'll talk to you about in ways that we can enter the market. And I mean, we can push price as much as possible. As long as that matches your timing and motivation, that is an acceptable strategy. I'm totally behind that. Or we can, come in within the range of the comps. I will also cover that pricing is virtually impossible today, and I wouldn't be afraid to tell them that, but I would combine that with how important that strategy is. Then I would talk about communication. What in the world does communication mean to value to you? Communication means everything from all the relationships with other realtors that I have, through the process of how, are we going to eliminate are we going to put a time frame in for showings, and we're going to set a period of time for when we will entertain offers. Are we going to put this thing on a Friday and then entertain offers until Monday at 5:00? There was an expert on here logged on a minute ago, and that's Ron. I'm pointing a finger at Ron and Lois. There's a lot of other agents in the company who are very good at it. They set up this window where they can create urgency, get people in and out, and then we can entertain offers. That all falls under your communication. You set yourself up, you are causing a problem for the seller when somebody knocks up the door. They're not just think saving. They're going to think, and you can tell them, we're seeing great clients that think they're saving money that are actually leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table all the time because of the way this market's moving. So, I think it's real important as agents that we set that up in the beginning. Okay. Any questions on that, or is that confusing to anybody? Any thoughts? No?
I just have one
Yep.
question. So leaving the price blank,
Yeah.
can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Why that's a good thing to do?
Well, it's not a good thing to do, but here's the deal. If you're with a client, a potential listing client, and they're good with you, Mark, we want to list our property with you. We know that. But my gosh, all this conversation about strategy and how we're going to do this, I'm not sure if we want to price it at 300,000 or like you said, we want to go in at 275. I don't know which one that's best. Well, you know what? We don't have to decide that today. If you're uncomfortable with that, let's sign the listing. Let's regroup tomorrow. We'll spend more time talking about price. That's all we have to fill out. All I'm saying is don't leave there without a signed listing if you don't have to, because people are losing deals left and right. Because agent number 2 comes in that you didn't even know was coming in. And they say, I don't have any hesitation about that. I'll take it at 350, and you're out. There's crazy stuff happening. And just about the time you think you know the value of something here today, you don't know the value of something. So it's different.
But would that be considered a valid listing contract if it doesn't?
No,
Okay, so,
you have to get it filled out and initialed,
right,
but at least you've got something.
right.
It's kind of like, Lori, somebody calls you and said, I want to make a verbal offer on that property you have. A what? I want to make a verbal offer on that property. Oh, we don't do verbal. I'm sorry. It's another level of, by them writing that contract is another level of commitment to me. And I just don't want to see you guys lose listings inadvertently. So it used to not be this urgent. It's this urgent. I hope that makes sense. Appraisal expectations, cover them up front. When you're dealing with a listing, the first time you're dealing with a listing and you're getting to the point of them signing a listing, that's when you need to cover the expectations that that could be surprises later on, because that gives you a baseline to go back to. So everybody in here, I think everybody in here understands what appraisal expectations are. I just talked to Josie this morning about one. What's happening in our market, how it's pushing the market, how appraisers can't do it. Don't set the appraiser up to be the bad guy. Tell them how hard that is, and tell them how we deal with that in negotiations to protect them as much as we possibly can. But we want to have this conversation in the beginning so that they're not surprised in the end. And we can deal with it. We talk a lot about little words that help people feel comfortable. Words like, it's common in our market. This is something that we deal with daily. I don't want you to worry about this today. I just want to bring it up because this is where I come in. This is where I can help you. Little bitty things like that reassure people, and they're, because they've heard stuff from their buddies. So, I do have to apologize because I was supposed to get my hair cut like 3 days ago and I didn't. So I know it's bad. My wife tells me it's bad every morning, and I'm sorry.
Goody.
Square footage. You know about square footage. Somebody tell me why we're talking about square footage. Like all, huh?
Measurement disclaimer.
Measurement disclaimer. Why would we care about what the square footage is? I've had 3 of them. I don't know if you guys remember the email we sent out that Jane was involved in. I should say Lori was involved in, and Jane. But, it behooves us to never take on the measurement of square footage on our own. Use county GIS, even though it's not accurate, use it. Use square plans. Plans are probably the best. Use so we got floor plans, we got an old county GIS, we got an old appraisal, and all of them are good options, better options than you saying the agent measured it. Agent measured it, not a good thing. We've had several come up, several after the fact or right before closing, an appraiser does an appraisal, they're off by 500 square feet. Oh my gosh, they're off by 500 square feet. By the way, when that happens, not all appraisals measure the same. Did we have 3 appraisals involved in that? Yeah, we did. I'll just give you a brief overview. About 3,800 square feet. The house was in MLS for 41, correct? The seller had an old appraisal. No, I can't remember.
Yeah, the seller had an old appraisal.
Different appraisals. The last one after closing for a refi came out at 3,100 square feet.
All right, thanks.
What was it?
41 sold at 4,100.
Oh, my goodness.
People panicked. Guy was a CPA. He was going to sue. Somebody was going to get in trouble. Jane and Lori had included a measurement disclaimer. So they had a little bit of insulation there. But it was not a comfortable deal because we had to have a lot of conversation, a lot of wasted time. Long story short, we talked the seller into going out and get a third-party opinion, which was a architect. The architect measured it, came out at 4,300. So appraiser number 3 that measured this at 3,100 was just a little off.
Why he's retired.
It wasn't good.
Yeah. We sense on our team, our measurement disclaimers are required on.
So
every single one of our
That's
contracts.
Lori talking. On their team, their measurement disclaimers are required. By the way, our theory from a company standpoint is we don't want to penalize you guys or make every piece of paper that Mark comes out with a mandatory requirement. But we definitely want to, I appreciate you guys for doing that stuff. We haven't taken that to that point where it's required yet, only because there's only been a few instances, and we want to make sure that we're doing stuff appropriately before we're requiring every form for you to get paid. Ameren permits, it's a good policy at the time of the listing, if you're listing a lakefront property, to pull the Ameren permit. Did I talk to you about this the other day? Yeah, I did. We had a conversation about it the other day. Lakefront property, pull that dock permit, then look at that dock permit. The agent's the only one that can do this because the agents, if you're on a team, the agent's the only one that's seen that house likely. Look on the dock permit at the dock that's sitting on the dock permit, and then look at the dock, because some sellers add another slip and don't ever permit it. That's a bad surprise a week before closing. That will kill a deal because Ameren will not get that done. They don't care. I mean, they're backed up. Gary's looking at me. I think we've had several conversations about that or that come up. I mean, it happens a lot. So it's a good practice. The other thing is for primaries, CoreLogic is something that you guys do, right?
Yep, flood starts.
So the main will run a CoreLogic. I guess it's for anybody really.
Mhm.
And it's a $15 deal. Is that right?
Yeah.
And most of all you guys know about that, but that determines whether you're in a flood a flood plain or not, or if the maps are wrong. Because sometimes houses on bluffs are in the floodplain. And we know that St. Louis would flood prior to that house flooding, but we have to change it on the deal to figure it out. So staging information seems to be really beneficial. Offer that as a service you provide at the time of the listing. It's not something that's easily accessible. You have contacts. If you don't have contacts, call around and find them, because people really like that. It's good. So I skipped a step there. Any questions on that stuff before we get into the listing itself? Is everybody okay? That's it.
Yep.
Stuff. Okay. So the form itself calls for the owner. Somebody tell me what's okay to fill out on that. We're just going to go real quick through this. Who owns that property? So you need to know. The reason you need to know is to have a valid listing, you need to know who owns that property. If you put the husband's name on there only, and he tells you that his wife's not on there, you better double check that, because if it comes up later and they're getting a divorce and her name's not on there, you don't have a valid listing. And now you got a contract on it and you've sold something you didn't have listed. I only say it like that because we've had it happen and I've learned. And I don't want to know, I don't want it to happen to any of you guys. You know, what entity owns it? If an entity owns it, somebody down the road is going to ask who the signer is. So if they say an LLC owns it, try to get a copy of that operating agreement. If they say a trust owns it, we just had one in our team last week. You heard it through your office, Austin, because it was being talked about. The guy, when it got to the point where the title company asked him for the paperwork on the trust, he said, no, I'm giving my paperwork out in 35 years. I'm not giving any damn person my paperwork. Well, his paperwork is the one that shows who signs. And I mean, I had to get on the phone with her and this guy wasn't going to give it. We switched title companies. We found a title company that closed a thing for him years ago. And thankfully they had it because the title company he was with, he wasn't giving it to. They had surprise. All we're trying to do is eliminate surprises. So you're dealing with somebody, you learn a lot from them when you ask those questions. So it's not only how you fill it out, it's the questions you ask about that help you.
I have a question.
I hope we know realtor.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
do you verify who owns that property? Do you go by the taxes?
Yeah.
By the property report card? Where do you find?
So there's a lot of ways to do it. The first step's to go to the county. You can run a title search on it if you really have a concern. Again, I would do that as step number 2 after I had this signed. You know what I mean? Like right after I had this signed, I would run a title search on it if you wanted to, if you were worried. Lori, what are your thoughts?
That's what we do.
Okay.
If those red flags happen
Yeah.
in that conversation with our listing agent, and if there's kids involved, if there's, there was a death, if there's a trust, if there's an LLC, as soon as the listing goes to our listing manager, she will call the title company and we'll run preliminary title. It's
So,
just
Laura-
something unusual.
So I don't know if you guys in Cyberland can hear Lori, but Lori just said that's what they do. If there's a red flag on who owns that property, they run a title search. And there are red flags, pick up on them. I mean, listen for them.
And title companies are great. Our local title companies are great about working with us at no charge. And what we do on our listings, in private remarks, we say we would prefer to close at whatever title company it is that pulled that preliminary. So they don't charge us anything to run the title prior to, so.
I've not heard of them charging anybody at this point. So you're sitting there with them and they say, the wife says, yeah, it's in our name. And the husband said, well, the kids are on there. Yeah, they don't need to sign right now. Most of the time it's the husband saying that, but little things like that, maybe just whatever red flag you can pick up. Street address is interesting. So we didn't get dinged, but we did get warned that that they want the property that you're listing clearly identified, and they're cool with attaching something from like a plat that's initialed and attached. But sometimes down here we run into places that don't really have a clear street address. So make sure that if you're describing it, it's somebody else can understand where and what that property is. And sometimes street address just doesn't do it. So try to attach something that can be done. No real terms on ending date, price we know of. Any questions about that first part? No questions. The next part, I'm just going to say this while I can. I'm on line 18. That's what you're going to get paid. If you don't ask, you don't get. There is so much commission pressure out there, and most of it, I mean, a lot of it's real, but most of it's in our head. I would still have a pre-filled out listing agreement that has 7% on it. Let them negotiate it. A lot of times you won't have to. If you have to, you have a base. If they ask you what you charge and you come out with 6%, you're gonna get paid 6% or less. So I'm just indicating to you guys that not many businesses are responsible to defend their rate every time they go to somebody, and we are. What if you work for somebody and you had to defend what you were paid per hour every week because somebody decided that they're gonna pay you less? You have to defend it.
I don't know if there's any stat available through the board on residential transactions, but I would assume that by and large, 7% is still the majority.
So it's probably leaning the other way. My guess would be. But, the board doesn't put out anything like that because we can't talk about commission with any other brokerage. It's not, that's the one thing that
Sure.
is price fixing.
Right.
So the board, but we've had agents that because of their area or because of their property type have literally went through and defined what 6% listings get and what 7% listings get. And they've been able in certain areas at certain times to defend why it's worth it to a seller to list at a higher rate because the 7% listings sell faster and for more money. Gary Brennan did that all the time. And he did a good job at it. But I mean, I guess my point is, if we put no effort in defending our income, then we deserve it. We deserve to get less. In the absence of value, all there is price. So I'm a little passionate about it, I'm sorry, but commission and your transaction fee should be defended by you. And if you need help with that or you want to brainstorm, that's what we're supposed to be here for. But if we don't advocate that, who's going to? I told the story and you guys have heard it. I have had agents that are talking about coming to the company or looking into the company that have said, my broker tells me we can't charge more than 6% in today's market. Well, that's a sad thing in my opinion. So that's a bad deal.
I haven't done, a ton of listings over the years, but I've always told people, there are two primary reasons that you want to list at 7%. One is the motivation of all the buyer's agents is going to be to sell up.
Sure.
7% listing.
Absolutely.
6 or less. The other is, this is your listing contract. Build that 7% into your sales price.
Right. There's a lot of ways to
Doesn't
go
have to
about it.
cost you any money.
I do think we have to get smart about how we handle it up front because people are calling, and we've talked a lot about this. People are calling on the phone and they're saying, what do you charge? And if an agent answers the click, all they'll hear is a dial tone. So you got to get really smart today. You got to say, well, commission is 100% negotiable. I mean, switch the script on these people. Are you making your decision based on who is the least expensive? Or are you making the decision on who offers the fastest sale for the most money? Because every agent is different. Every company is different. I am different. I want to get in front of you and show you my value. You don't have to hire me. And absolutely is commission negotiable. But I don't want to tell you that I'm the cheapest because I'm not. Because I do a better job. I get better results. I want to talk to you. Is that fair? I mean, you got to have your own answer built into your head and be happy about it and not defensive about it. And believe it. And I mean, for you guys that are coaching us salespeople, and that's what I think you do. I think you come back from this class and you coach your agents. Bring that to them. Tell them about this. Pre-fill out a listing form with a transaction fee and a commission so you can't chicken out. I'm talking to me. If it's filled out, I can't chicken out. Do that for yourself so you at least ask for it. Anyway, I'm done. Sorry, preach. So everybody gets 31 to 33. We know about that. That's when you get paid the additional compensation. Any questions on anything before we get to 45, 46, and 47? 45, 46, and 47 is where we disclose what we're doing for other agents. So we don't practice sub-agency anymore. Everybody knows that? So that one's a given. The other two, why do they make us do that? Why do they make you do that? 46 and 47, why do they make you disclose? Anybody? Nobody? I'll say it. Nobody. Because the seller needs to know what you're offering to pay other realtors. Because, and I don't know, it's very rare in today's market, but when I got into this, there were lots of companies that listed for 7% and they keep 5 and pay 2. Lots of companies. Or they list for 6% and they keep 2, they pay 2.5. I mean, there were all kinds of weird variations. Commonplace now is 50-50, but that's why they want that seller to know what you're offering. And I think we should be proud to talk about it. That we do. We pay 50%. We offer 50% compensation. The next box, we've talked about this one a lot. Check only if applicant realtor offer of compensation is not available to broker other than MLS participants. There isn't one agent in this class probably that hasn't dealt with that yet. What do we check there? What's our norm on those two? 48? 48 is correct. We want to not offer that. Why do we want to not offer that?
We don't want anybody in.
Keeps Kansas and St. Louis out.
Yeah, it keeps agents that don't know our market out. And the reason we want to do that, and it's not that you can't change it. You have the ability as long as you have permission from your seller and you decide. We've had a policy in place for, Lori, how long? 20 years?
Mhm.
That we don't co-broke with agents that are not members of our board. So today it's beautiful. If they're coming from Kansas City, let them join the board. That way they actually have access to the material they need to actually represent their client like you should. But coming down, holding the hand of a client, not having access to MLS, not knowing Ameren or electrical, you guys have been down that road. We have, for you new guys, we have a policy and a reasons why. If you need to defend that policy, you can get it. And it allows you the flexibility to make a decision on your own if that agent is
Morning.
qualified. So there's some, because if you're selling a farm, well, maybe you better co-broke because farms are farms. They're different. Commercial, different. Commercial is commonly co-broked across the state, across multiple states. I mean, we don't want to be silly, but we also want to make sure that we're not doing all the work for somebody else and putting our own client in hot water because the other company doesn't know how to write a contract that includes a slip or a doc. Okay, I'm beating it up. It's still prevalent and it's becoming, I don't know that it's becoming more, but it's definitely as prevalent as it ever was. Any thoughts about that? Comments? Motivating factors. Everybody knows about that one, does or does not. It's just dependent upon your client. Why would somebody not want to disclose what their motivating factor for selling is?
Divorce.
The 3 Ds, yep.
Mhm.
Death, divorce, disease. Maybe they don't want to disclose that they've got some terrible, I would totally understand. So, but most of the time check mark does, but regardless, just check mark 1. This has been a common one that has come up a lot. 54 and 55, the disclosure of offers and terms. To me, that thing has changed tremendously in the last year. So it used to be, we always disclose the existence of offers, but we never commonly disclose the terms. It's a great way to help a seller understand your value when you're explaining the listing of why they would want to disclose the terms of a contract to a potential player, to a potential buyer, I'm sorry. Does anybody want to help me with that? Why would you want to do that? Nobody wants to help
With
me.
the multiple offers.
Yes, thank you. In multiple offers. So rather than the old highest and best scenario, you can choose to use a transparent way to negotiate multiple offers. Now, I would never disclose the terms of a contract to someone who hasn't written an offer yet. But if I have 10 offers, I might choose to lay out the specifics to all of them and let them play a game with each other as long as every counter and every change is in writing. We've seen great success with that. So they weed each other out and the offers go up and up and up until the very end. And we've seen less complaints about that. Susan does that a lot in our office, and lots of other agents have done it. And it's across the board, it seems to be working very well. It's hard for people to think that it's handled inappropriately or unethically. And that's one of the reasons why you would check the box that says that you're allowed to disclose terms. Mark, you got another question. You're totally over your number. We got to be on 7 or 8 right now. So.
Okay, so you've got the listing.
Yeah.
And I've got a buyer.
Yeah.
And I write an offer.
Yeah.
Mr. Kelly has a buyer.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you going to tell me
Yeah.
or show me about Mr. Kelly's buyer?
Okay, well, so you both, so I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm going to make some assumptions that we are entertaining offers on Monday at 1:00. Okay. And I have listed this on Friday, and both you fellas are in the loop somewhere in between. You sent me written offers, right?
Mhm.
So once I get fairly close, I'm going to keep everybody informed that I have multiple offers. Remember, guys, we only have until Monday at 1:00. So Monday morning, or Sunday afternoon, whatever I decide, somewhere in that midst, I'm going to send an email out, blind carbon copy. You're not going to know who you are. But in that email, I'm going to say, I have 5 offers. Offer number 1 is X amount, no financing contingency, no appraisal contingency, or it has financing. I'm going to tell you the terms. Make any changes. Remember, we have until noon on Monday, and I'm going to allow movement within that period of time. You guys are going to negotiate against each other and against yourselves until we get to close to that number. We have
But we're all
Yeah.
blind. So,
Yeah.
so it's an honor system.
no.
We're
What do
just
you mean?
believing you.
Absolutely, but I'm not disclosing anything I don't have in writing.
Okay,
I
but
mean,
how do I know that?
yeah, well, how do you know this? If we play the old highest and best game, how do you know this? I have multiple offers. You have until 1:00 to change or till noon to change your offer. I mean, what am I doing
I
for
don't know
my,
if it's a bluff or not.
right? What am I doing for my seller though?
Are you
Where's the seller?
creating an
benefit?
urgency.
Right. Listen, it's an agent's choice. And I'm not saying what's right or wrong. There's still a lot of agents that are uncomfortable with it. I just personally think it does more good for the seller
I think
than
you need to have the discussion
Negative.
going out the agreement.
that.
Because
We're right here.
you can tell the guy, look, this is just another tool in our chest. If we want to use it, we can, and at that point, we'll discuss it.
Perfect, Gary. Listen, remember what I said? An agent's value is represented by strategy and communication. It's true. Good agents that negotiate today better than others mean lots and lots of money for their sellers. It doesn't mean it's a fun thing or an easy thing, but I mean, it represents value. And when you start going down that road with a seller and you tie it to your listing, all of a sudden they begin to understand why they don't want to do this themselves. And you can make that your value proposition that covers the reason why you get paid more.
Right.
In the absence of value, all you have in price. If you don't explain this stuff, you might as well just cut your commission. I get a little passionate, I'm sorry.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Jeff, I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you put this deadline out there in the MLS saying we're accepting offers till Monday at 1, and you get a great offer, cash offer that's 30,000 over. And
Okay,
your
put it
seller-
out there, the deadline's at 1, you get a great offer, 30,000
And
over,
your seller says,
I
I
wanna
wanna
take it.
take it.
Yeah,
Screw the other offer.
yeah,
Then what do you do?
man, I
You
hope,
already put that
I hope
deadline.
Ron Schweiss doesn't turn on his microphone. I love you, Ron. We've had a lot of conversation about this. If you play, this is just an opinion. So when you call the hotline, here's what the hotline tells you. The seller can accept any offer they choose at any time. It's not the agent's decision. That's what the hotline tells you. I will tell you, if you set a rule, if you decide to play that game, you owe it to your other agents to play that game. So write it in your listing contract. We talked about this a long time ago. Write it when you're discussing strategy with your seller and you're discussing, I'm going to put it on MLS on this day. I'm going to pre-market it within my company prior. I'm going to put it on MLS on this day because I'm not allowed to pre-market it outside the company. I'm going to hold off offers until this time. Now, Mr. Seller and Mrs. Seller, you know we're okay. If we get a great offer on Saturday, we're not going to accept it. We're going to wait until 1 o'clock on Monday, right? I'm just going to write that in there. Seller agrees to review contracts at 1 p.m. on Monday. And then you cover your base as an agent and you say, hey, by the way, if we don't receive multiple offers because we're pushing price and you know we're pushing price, it's okay. It doesn't hurt us. Not a black cloud. This is a strategy. I deal with that too. But that's to your point. I mean, an agent should play the game. They should follow the rules they set. I hate it when an agent calls me and says, my sellers wanted to take it and it's really good, so I let them take it. And now so-and-so is really mad at me. And I'm like, well, they should be. What? But it wasn't my decision. Well, did you put that on MLS? And now you're not waiting? You know why? Agents don't write offers until the end of that period. They have a strategy too. On the buyer side, you're actually doing your seller a disservice. Okay. That's our point about that.
Yep.
So now we went through offers and terms. Oh my goodness, look at the little red one. Love letters, first change. I'm gonna start moving fast, but
What the hell is that?
yeah, what the hell is that? I agree. Yeah. Okay, so when a buyer's agent has a buyer, they love the property, they like to do a video about themselves that's presented, or a letter about themselves that's presented about how much they love this property and their dogs are gonna have fun in the backyard and their kids love the swing set. Well, now NAR, now National Association of Realtors, and this was happening in Phoenix. Jason, our nephew, told us about this 6 months ago, in Phoenix. So this is we're trailing, our market's trailing on this deal. But, they do this and you can watch a whole deal on this, but they are worried that it's a fair housing violation. A seller can look at that letter or that picture or that video and make a determination on race, on religion, and determine they're not going to do it. My opinion is NAR shouldn't control everything that we do, but that's only my opinion. I hate it. NAR is going to look through your emails, by the way, and see if you make any statements that could be perceived as. I think I think NAR's stepping a little over the line, but that doesn't matter what I think. So all we have to do here is make sure that our seller knows the cautions about love letters, about allowing love letters, what they call love letters. Make sure the seller makes that decision.
Well, there may be something I don't understand here, but if the seller asks me my opinion, I would say, don't do it.
You know, from a seller standpoint, it's probably the best. And if I was on the buyer side and my buyers wanted to write one, I would say, write it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now I understand, but I'm telling you, we might as well have real conversation,
Yeah.
because that's what's gonna happen. And to your point, we just need to have the discussion with the seller, help them understand why it's there. There are bad people out there. I had to go to a closing with one of our agents that the guy literally made a decision 2 days before when he searched the other gentleman. He searched the buyer on Facebook and he made a decision that he wasn't going to sell his property to him. And we can imagine why he wasn't going to, because of race. And I had to go to the closing. This was a business owner. And I called him that day and said, he wouldn't answer my phone on a cell. I called his business and they put me right through to him. And I said, I'm waiting at closing for you. If you make the mistake not to show up, I'm just here to tell you, I'm not defending you. I have created a case against you, and you could lose everything. Because you've made it really clear to me why you're intending not to close, and it's a bad move.
You show up?
Oh, he showed up, and the agent sat in the car, and I sat in the closing with him. And when the closing person left and nobody was recording, I said some neat things to him.
Good.
But so this is a double-edged sword though, because I believe that a buyer elevates their ability by conveying emotion.
That's right. And we're supposed to coach or advise that, and it's just our opinion,
Yep.
but that we need to keep emotion out of real estate transactions.
Correct.
as much as possible.
Yeah, but sellers make decisions on emotion
I know.
too. So anyway, it's tough. Any other questions about that one? Sorry, talking a lot. We'll keep them moving here. Really no other questions on there's no real changes, I don't think, on page number 2. You cannot force someone to fill out a seller's disclosure. We want it every chance we can. And if they won't do it, we want them to sign that they won't do it. And there's a spot for that. But if somebody calls you out on the fact that you don't have a seller's disclosure, you can't force, agents don't fill out seller's disclosures, and we can't force somebody to do it. And there's times when it's not gonna happen, so. Everybody knows about, I think we got everything else. Is there any questions anybody has on listing agreement, page number 2? Going once. I still got the stupid clown auction in my head. So,
How many times do people, who are in a state, they don't know anything about the property, and they'll tell you, well, I'm not telling you on a seller's disclosure, I didn't live here, I don't know anything about it, I don't know. But they were aware that a new roof was put on 2 years ago.
Gary's question, how many times does somebody that has like an estate say they don't know anything about it, and then they say they were aware that a roof was put on 2 years ago? So when I was sitting with them, I would say a seller's disclosure is only another release of liability for you. So before you say you're not going to fill one out and put NA, unknown, on every blank that you can. And then put anything down that you do know. Because once you go through it, you might know more than you think.
I think it's better to force
I
them to
do too. But the bottom line is sometimes you can't force them to do it, and maybe their attorney told them not to or what have you. And then you don't want to, but I agree with you. It's best practice. Any questions on anything else on, we're past page number 2, I guess. We're on 3. So let's go down to equal opportunity. Here's your love letter. So you see all that red? Excuse me. Realtor will comply with owner's instructions as set forth on page 1 or subsequently in writing with respect to any love letter, picture, or photograph that accompanies or is made to be a part of any offer received with respect to the property. Realtor advises that no love letter be presented to owner and that any love letter be returned to the offer or potential buyer, even if it can't be separated from the offer. A love letter is a personal letter written by buyers, often with photos attached, in the hopes that the offer will stand out. These letters can reveal information about a buyer, such as the above protected classes, which should not be considered by owner in choosing among competing offers. There you go. So that's what they put in there. One thing I don't know why I've got this in my head. This is on the buy side, but when you're presenting a offer on a real hot property, or on something there's multiple offers, as a buyer's agent, call that other agent and ask them what's most important to the seller and what's most important to you. Ask them. Get the agent on your side, because all you're doing, bullying in this market is gone. Don't bully. You can't do it. Also, if you have an agent that won't respond to you, don't wait. We had an agent that was trying to be nice to the other agent and could not get a response from them. And 3 days later found out that their offer was never presented. Go to the broker. Do anything you have to do. You have the right to be present when that offer is presented to the seller. That's a dire need deal, but you do if you have to. So I'm seeing that happen more and more, by the way, in these multiple offers. Agents want to be part of the presentation to the seller. They want to do that just to make sure the other agent is presenting. Be careful though, because it'll put it with the wrong agent done the wrong way. All of a sudden you're at odds, because some agents get defensive about that. So be careful the way you set that up. It's kind of touchy.
What's your policy on getting the sellers to actually sign the rejections? I'm starting to think I want that to be done.
Oh my gosh, is that a great question? Did you hear that?
Because otherwise you don't know if it was presented.
What's the policy in getting a seller to sign a rejection? I mean, so a seller doesn't have to sign anything. First of all, it's back to our stuff. A rejection is great, but if they never sign an offer, you have nothing. I personally think it's professional courtesy though, and if I was the listing agent, I would set my seller up for that.
Sounds to me like a good way to make certain that it's shown, because if the agent that you're asking to get their buyer or their seller to sign, if the agent says, oh, they just didn't want to sign, then I think you could demand or make the case that, well, then I'm going to need to sit in on the presentation if you won't. A better way to make sure that it's actually being done, because why else wouldn't they let? Why else wouldn't they?
Well, because it's not. I mean, you have 10 offers these days. All the other offers aren't getting rejected. I mean, they don't sign off on every one.
I'm only worried about mine.
Correct, I know. But normally, to Lisa's point though, normally whenever a rejection question comes up, it comes up because the buyer or the agent suspects something. It comes up at the end, not the beginning. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, to our agents, if somebody asks for a rejection, get it signed.
So,
You've done the right thing. You've handled it correctly. Get it signed.
what do you think? I'm at
I wish we could blanket.
5 to 12. You think you'll?
I wish we could say that every other agent's going to do it, but
I'll start
you
shutting.
don't have to.
All right, we'll see.
Carol's looking at me. You, yeah. Okay, so on to page 5 of 7. So since we went to designated agency, everybody understands that that's where I sign because they make us, because we practice designated agency. You do not have to have my signature day one. Do not hold that up. Okay, that can be done later. Also, you know, if you have another agent, Susan's looking at me now because she probably thinks I have to have it.
No, they
Right
would,
then.
don't put it in pipeline until you have
Good point. Did you hear that? Don't put it in pipeline until you have my signature on there. But I'm just telling you, if it's Saturday night, you gotta get that thing signed, get it signed. I'll sign it on Monday.
I'm coming over.
Yeah, you are only allowed to email me. So conversion, this is just our policy. So conversion to dual agency, that's a yes. Unless there's a specific reason you need to check it, no. But I hope you don't, because you need to convert to dual agency if you sell it yourself or if another member on your team sells it. Everybody okay with that? Designated agents. Yes, because we practice designated agency. So you're always a designated buyer's agent or you're always a designated seller's agent unless you sell it yourself. Everybody's okay with that? We do allow for transaction brokerage, although we don't like it. None of us like it because you can't really be a transaction broker because you're going to probably say something that could be implied or be construed as representation. It's hard to be a transaction broker, but if somebody has a specific case, a buyer, you know, a seller brings their own buyer and they want you to help them with paperwork or something, and you really don't know either party, maybe you're okay, or you haven't had much conversation. But we would much rather you be a seller's agent or a buyer's agent or an agent, some kind of agent. Anybody, any other thing on that page?
So is this page of the listing contract stating to the seller, these are what our brokerage offers? and
Yeah.
these are- Okay, so when you're saying, we always mark yes on the transaction brokerage.
Yep.
So, but you're saying that even though this is what the brokerage offers, can an agent within the brokerage mark no?
You betcha. So a company has to disclose to everyone, and that's why there's always a form for best practice included into the transactions so that everybody knows what options, agency options we offer. But that doesn't mean that in a given transaction, we can't go a different direction with one. So for instance, I've had attorneys say, you're not gonna offer dual agency. The agent calls me, we really want the listing. We talk about what that means if we don't allow for dual agency, and we move on down the road. I mean, let them cross it out. Take the listing. The worst case scenario is they'll get Jason to represent a party, or they'll get somebody else in the company to represent the part of another party. They'll work out something. You know, we can work on it. Yes.
Tammy has a question.
No, not Tammy. Mute Tammy. Hi, Tammy.
Hey, I don't really have a question. I was just gonna say, so on the listing contract, and so the broker disclosure form says what the company will allow for broker relationships. But on the listing contract, are you really gonna say, I'm your seller's agent until X amount of time and then I'm a transaction broker? How can you can't even do that because you already know all the stuff about them. So we mark no, we're not going to convert to a transaction broker.
What do you mean? I'm sorry, I missed you.
On this.
The tornado. Tammy, are you there?
Line, okay, so 228
Yes.
and 239. 239, D and E,
239, I see it, yep.
okay? Why, how are you gonna be a transaction broker when you've already, you're gonna convert to a transaction broker? You have been their seller's agent. You already know. Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Yeah, so we mark,
I don't think that you should do that.
no, we mark no. I'm not gonna do it.
I don't blame you. You can. We have never, as a company, we've never said you cannot. But it is offered as a possibility, as an agency possibility for the company. I agree with what you're saying.
It's exactly what
I guess maybe the only thing is maybe if that seller like gets pissed off at you or something and doesn't really want to work with you, then you can say you're a transaction broker.
Gary was saying something and I couldn't stay with you. I'm sorry. What did you say?
I just said, I guess the only reason that you might convert to a transaction broker is if that seller like gets mad at you and doesn't really want to work with you. And then you just say, "Fine, I'll be your transaction broker."
Yeah, I mean, when you check, yes, you're not, I mean, I guess you're just leaving yourself open. That's all. You never know. I mean, our buyers, our sellers are savvy, and we deal with some characters, and the best thing that I could think of, or the most common thing that I can think of where agency is challenged, questioned, or changed is when you have an attorney. And I love working with attorneys. I'm not kidding. That's not a joke. You know why? Because they'll be the last one to sue you, not the first one. Because an attorney has every right and is deemed as knowledgeable or more knowledgeable than any agent. For an attorney to sue their own agent would be death. You see what I'm saying? I've not seen it, and I learned that from Frank, and it holds true. Very rarely would you ever see an attorney try to sue their own agent. They'll sue the other agent, but they got to be careful because the judge is going to say, what are you asking for? Excuse me, sir, you're an attorney, right? You're telling me you didn't understand something or somebody did you wrong in this transaction? I mean, they have more to prove, not less. So are we good with that, Tammy?
Yes, sorry, I muted myself.
Okay, look at the next page. See how huge that special agreements section is, and we're almost out of time. Please don't fill the whole thing up. We don't want to write special agreements unless we have to. We do want to attach. Attach things like full trust names, like lists of owners. Documents that clearly define the property. We want to attach that stuff. We just don't want to make up a whole bunch of other stuff in there if we don't have to. So,
Jeff, in this case, would this be where you would write into the contract that you're going to be accepting offers
Yes.
until 1 o'clock Monday afternoon?
Yes.
Or whatever? Okay.
yes. Yes, sir.
And if commission is not going to be paid on a dock or personal property, that go in there.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. I think you definitely, that should be defined with the seller. That's a very good point. And then make sure to carry that through to MLS. That's where it really gets sticky when you don't tell the other agent accidentally. I mean, and that's a bad deal. You're not going to pay on upgrades or docks, or you are going to pay, that makes it different. Anything else? I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory. You guys come up with anything else? When you see changes, please call me. I absolutely hate being the last to know. And you guys see it long before I do a lot of times. So don't hesitate to help a brother out. So thank you for coming to the class. We'll continue to have these. Susan might have something to say. Or just Kate.
Questions?
Huh?
Does he have that question?
I don't think
I don't know.
So-
Are they on here?
No,
Susan,
I printed them out.
do you have the questions?
My question is.
Okay, we got questions.
On the condo writer, Right here,
Okay,
line
The date.
1, the date.
so this is a condo rider to listing agreement, line 1.
Okay, what should that date be? Is that?
So let me say something about the condo rider to listing. We have not made that mandatory.
Right.
So a condo rider to a listing agreement is not mandatory from a company standpoint. It's not a bad idea, it's a good idea. The question is, what should it be dated on the first line? It says, this rider shall be attached to and form a part of the listing contract dated.
Mhm.
So whatever date the listing contract is, the
Okay.
effective
The
date.
effective date on the
Yes.
listing contract.
Yes.
Is it the same for a listing contract amendment? Like, because it has that same line?
Listing
Yes.
and-
Yes,
Okay.
it should tie to that, I would think.
So it should not, it has to be a date that's on that listing contract. It can't be the date it was entered into the MLS if that date is not on the listing contract.
Well, I
See
think
what I'm
it
saying?
asks for the date of the listing, part of the listing contract dated.
And we,
Listing,
on some of ours, we put whatever that line is upon entry into MLS.
So this, I mean, I think it
It's our
could,
date.
I think it could be the date that they sign or the effective date, whichever's later. Because the effective date says when it goes live.
Right.
yes.
So it could be those two dates. I mean, I think you could argue that either way. But it has to be tied to a date on the listing contract by definition. That's what it says.
Okay. That's where we're running into issues on our end.
Well, it's not mandatory.
Well,
So because it's not mandatory, I wouldn't get too sticky about it, if, as long as it's one of those two dates,
okay.
because they're not gonna penalize us on that. Because this could be attached or not. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay.
Same with the amendment or withdrawal.
And Susan and Caitlin do an outstanding job, as well as everybody else, trying to balance the difference between what is mandatory that MRAC is gonna get you on if you miss, and what is not. And it's not a fine, I mean, it's not an easy road. There's so many gray areas. I mean, I had my eyes open so big in that audit. That's crazy. What other questions? Real quick.
The only other thing that you had was the thing about the Portachina.
Oh, no.
Okay, so Portachima, Sunrise Beach, Four Seasons, like us.
Oh, no. Municipalities. is that what
So
we're
if
talking
you put Portachima on the MLS, do you put Sunrise Beach on the listing contract, or can you put Portachima?
You put Sunrise Beach because Portugal doesn't have a post office.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's what I've
so
been
if
told.
that listing contract doesn't say Sunrise Beach, then I need to point that out.
The listing
If the
Contract
contract doesn't
always
say
says-
Sun,
always says municipality,
okay, same with Four
So we're
Seasons.
talking about municipalities. We're talking about the difference between Sunrise Beach and Portachima or Portacima, however you pronounce it. I still don't know
Yeah,
after
how do
30
you
years.
pronounce it?
but Chima.
Chima.
He says Chima, I say Sema, I don't know.
We're going with Chima.
Good, Chima, okay. So
Same
I-
with Four Seasons, like Ozark.
I don't know why you would mandate that.
Well, Village to the Four Seasons is still Lake Ozark.
See,
I
I'm
don't know
struggling.
why
Well,
Here's the reason. Here's the reason. I live in Four Seasons now. You know what? I can write Lake Ozark down, it gets to my house.
Mhm.
I can write Four Seasons down, gets to my house. Same zip.
Yeah.
I would not,
But technically, it has to be Lake Ozark, because that's where the zip is attached to.
well,
But-
USPS recognizes Four Seasons.
Okay.
well, so
Okay.
Now, I don't know if they
We
recognize
can't-
Portachima. I do
So-
know they recognize Four Seasons.
So
You all
listen,
might want to move.
listen.
That's all I'm saying.
out of 105 agents and probably 30 administrative professionals that are smarter than any of the agents, there is a mixture of personalities here. And I love our detailed personalities. But in my mind, this just my simple mind, if the commission is not going to ding us, why would we as a company mandate the difference? So I'm saying we're not gonna mandate it. If it's Sunrise Beach on a listing, Sunrise Beach. If it's what, Sema?
Chima?
Chima.
Chima, I wanna say Sema so bad. If it's Portacima, and it falls into, we're not gonna mandate it, we're not gonna go backwards. But in your team, you do what you need to.
We decided as a team, again, err on the side of caution. Legal document, which is the listing contract, sales contract, legal document, you better say Sunrise Beach.
Do it to it.
But again,
See, and so that's where,
Here's another
From
reason
our-
why.
No, from an audit, we didn't get dinged on that once,
Is
not
because
one
No.
time.
these are fees, like Zillow and all, they don't recognize them.
from our,
right.
from our
That's
mid-states
very true.
doesn't recognize
I don't
this.
understand.
Four Seasons
Our
and Four
That's
fees
Seasons.
because-
to all the different.
That's why we have to do it.
That's because-
They don't.
They don't
pick up
recognize Port
or
Cube
do
as a city.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
how,
like, who's that?
You enter
Oh,
by
yeah.
zip
So,
code.
so when they're put in, if they're put into MLS without that, they're saying they won't, what do you call it, syndicate.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Now, I don't know that. I would have to investigate that, because I haven't heard anybody complain about listings that didn't syndicate.
I was just wondering, okay,
because
so
you
say you
want
put
it
the
as
listing in the
Port
MLS and you
Cube,
put
Four
Four
Seasons
Seasons,
and Matrix.
but then
Right.
on the listing
Almost
contract,
everything
you put
on
Sunrise
there,
Beach.
yeah.
Well, if somebody wants to write an offer on it, they might get the address off of the MLS and then it doesn't match.
I don't think that
Does
matters.
that matter?
I don't think it matters. It only matters for us on the accounting side for mid-states, because they kick those out because they're not a legal address, or like they're not
Well, nah,
attached.
so there you go. That is a point I didn't, think about. I didn't take that into consideration, but, you know, unless we were hard pressed to cause something to be, I mean, it'd have to be really important before we made that a office policy because of all the listings that come down the pipe. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm still an agent at heart and I still want to not make it too hard on the agents. I'm sorry.
we can deal with those details
Okay.
on the back end
Yeah.
with the lenders and with the.
Yeah, unless they can prove to me that it's just that important, and Jason and George and everybody. Are we good? I went over the time. I did. Thank you, virtual people. See you. Appreciate you. Thank you, real live people.
And you thought you weren't gonna have that many.
Hey.